Hello there, guys, and welcome back to my channel for our live reaction and game analysis. I keep wanting to say player ratings live stream, but we don't do player ratings anymore. For our live reaction to Chelsea 1, Manchester United. Now, what a ginormous game. And don't anybody dare talk to me about them being 17th. I do not care. I do not care, first of all, that they're 17th, because them lot always turn up against us somehow, and we also always bottle it against them. Now, we can argue, were we robbed by the ref before this penalty? We will talk about it. In the end, it now doesn't matter, because Reece James has decided to, well, go from being criticised and go from all sorts of different, questions around him to turning into a ballerina, spinning on the spot, and then putting in the most beautiful cross without even looking right onto the forehead of Marc Cucurella, the man for the big moments. Marc Cucurella is literally him. Like, he literally is him now. First of all, we are joined once again by John. Appreciate you very much for joining me. John, I'm not sure what your initial thoughts were on Marc Cucurella, but boy, I don't think many saw this kind of transformation of his Chelsea career coming after his first season, because, oh my God, he's literally like, he's our main guy now. Like, obviously Caicedo, and Caicedo is the GOAT, obviously. But in terms of, like, being the I don't know, he's kind of managing to mix David Luiz and the few, like, obviously the hair and the charisma, and oh my God, he's doing everything. That goal today, my God, I was trying not to wake my whole building up. I was trying not to scream so badly.
Yeah,
that was good today, wasn't it?
Great header. Yeah, he's been great this season. Last season as well, towards the end, he really started to pick up, and this year he's been really, really consistent. Great header. I think we were just saying off before we came on then. I think is he our top goal scorer in 2025?
He literally might be.
That's about right.
How many he got in 2025? Like 4, 3, 4, 5? I think it might be 5 for the season, probably 4 in 2025 or something. It's crazy.
Yeah, he scored 2 he scored 2 against, was it Southampton in the league, was it? Am I getting that right? Or
I can't remember, man.
Anyway,
they all blend into one in my head.
Yeah, massive moment as well today. Really needed that really important time in the match. They delivered, which, I would rather see other forward players doing it, but anybody does it at this point of the season. That's all that really matters.
Absolutely. Let me get to a couple of messages in the chat. Ricky saying, let's go, Karan. Reece James turned the clock today. Beautiful spin and cross. Emmanuel just spamming emojis. Karan again, let's make Cucu our striker coach. And frankly, we probably should. What a cross from Capitano, Reece James or James. That's why our skipper needs to get into the final third more often. Karan then asks, what was the reason for Lavia on the bench for so long? Honestly, I don't know. But, well, it worked, so I'm not going to moan about it for too much, but we'll get into that. Dylan says Cucurella helped us get the 3 points with this goal. Quite literally did. Yeah, I mean, what do you make of games like this, John? Obviously, as you guys can see down below under John's name, he's the founder of the Bundesliga Diaries podcast, very much covering the Bundesliga out of Germany for a long time, but obviously a lifelong Chelsea fan. What do you make of games like this, when obviously you're playing a rival, obviously Manchester United, arguably in terms of, direct on-pitch rivalries, probably our biggest rival since the 90s, really. But you play them at their 17th, and that they're, or at least up there, whether they're actually our biggest rivals in, up for debate. But one of the biggest, right? But they're 17th. They've got a European Cup final, a Europa League final. Let's not claim like it's a Champions League final. In 4 or 5 days coming up, resting a few players injured. What do you make of a game like this? Because obviously people will say, oh, they're 17th. We could only barely beat them. Don't even pick it up. But I'm like, I don't know, man. Chelsea United. I've never seen United be absolutely dog water against us. I've never seen it. And even those days where they're really awful, they get saved by the ref. So it's never easy for us to beat Man United. I don't care what season we're going through. It's not from 2004 to now. I've not seen us easily beat Man United. I've never seen that. Oh, that's a lie. We beat them 4-0 on the Conte. That was easy. But that was the only one and only time that I can think of beating them easily. So, but how do you see it? Is it for you, but they're still 17th, so I can't be too, like, I don't know, pretending like we're amazing now? Or how do you view that kind of game?
I mean, at this point of the season, doesn't matter who we're playing. We had to win today. It could have been Arsenal, Liverpool. It could have been United, Tottenham, Ipswich. Like, we had to win 3 points. So, you kind of take the name of the opponent out of it, and just concentrate on that. In terms of United, they probably use this as prep for the Europa League final. They feel they're a strong team, really. Pretty much the best team, I would say. And yeah, probably in preparation looking for their final. So I don't think anybody can turn around and say that, like Liverpool, they threw it away and gave us the 3 points. Don't think they did that. But yeah, I mean, since Abramovich took over, United have been, certainly that initial period, United were always that main rival, really, weren't they, for league titles? It's different now. Both teams are in different stages, but I mean, today was just about winning. It was just about finding a way. It wasn't a great game of football. No. Neither team were very good. We started terribly. The first 20, 25 minutes were atrocious. Really, really poor. We looked so nervous, not handling the occasion in any shape or form. They scored and probably gave us a little bit of a kick up the arse. We were never great at any point in the match, but I think after the goal, or non-goal, we certainly had more control of the game. I mean, they had the Diallo shot at the end, didn't they? But other than that, I don't really remember any other situation where they were.
No, close. Honestly, the other closest one was when they cut back to Mount, when Mount missed on his left foot. That was probably their biggest other chance.
Well, sorry, I forgot that, yeah. But yeah.
But by the way, as much as obviously I'm glad we won, not only am I glad we won, I'm also glad Manchester United, Mason Mount didn't score, didn't do much anyway. The only thing I will say is, why are we booing him? Like, I get it, we hate him, I get it, but just use normal psychology. He will obviously try even harder if you boo him. It's like, I'll show you lot. Do you know what I mean? Boo him after the final whistle, not before, or when he's subbed off, not during the game, man. He's just going to try
to be fair, I think Mount only has one way of playing, and that is full gas. I don't think he...
I mean, that is true. That is true.
At his best, he's a player whose hard work makes opportunities for himself, as he did with us for 2 or 3 years, really, at his best. At his worst, he runs a lot. Always running. I mean, whether we boo him or not, I don't think it makes much of a
I can't lie, though. There was a few players in the team today where I thought, I wish they'd run a bit more. So, it's one of those. But there you go. Well, I'm not even going to talk about does he deserve the booze or not. I just more think it's not particularly useful in this scenario. Like I say, boo him when he comes off. Absolutely no problem with that. Boo him when his name gets read out or whatever. But I personally actually agree he shouldn't get booed because I, for a fact, know that he did not want to leave. You can call his dad a snake, but not Mason himself. But this is not what I'm here to talk about. I'm here to talk about Chelsea beating Manchester United. Like John said, we were absolutely woeful in the first 25 minutes. You can see it down here with the momentum chart as well, except this one after 5 minutes. Madueke was all of a sudden through on goal after a wonderful cross by Cole Palmer. Now, I think Madueke was offside anyway, so even if he did put that in rather than over, it wouldn't have stood, similar to Harry Maguire's goal for Man United, which wasn't long after that, and thankfully was disallowed. It was quite clear quite quickly that it would be offside, but it was still quite narrow, so there you go. And I think, John, you made a good point. On the one hand, obviously, it woke us up, gave us a kick up the arse, but I think it also... conceding, but then VAR overturning a goal is almost like... We criticize VAR many times, right? And we always talk about, like, it ruins football, it ruins the celebrations for goals. But what people sometimes don't mention is it gives you celebration moments that wouldn't have existed without VAR. Because as being Chelsea today, we thought we were miserable for conceding. All of a sudden, the goal doesn't stand, and we are celebrating as if we scored almost. I think that helped the atmosphere, and I think that helped our team, because then we found our feet a little bit. You could see the rest of the first half, we had a bit of momentum, but there wasn't much in it, though. Like, we didn't create much, except for one thing in that first half. Reece James rifling it against the post with an absolute wonder strike. That would have been up there for goal of the season. Like, flashbacks of Benjamin Pavard during the World Cup, was it? The World Cup 2018 for France against Argentina? Was it against Croatia? I can't remember. I think Argentina. It was. Absolutely, yeah, exactly. Absolute wonder goal. Reece James nearly pulled it off. Oh my God, if that went in, I would have lost my mind. But then we go into the second half. We were all terrified, by the way, that Reece James got himself injured. Thankfully, he didn't. Don't know what my hair is doing. Let me reposition my hat. we all thought he was injured, twisting his ankle and whatever. And I was like, please don't hold this against him. This is not an injury-prone thing. This is just unlucky. But somehow he managed to stay on the pitch, even though Gusto was warming up really hard at half-time, so everybody was a bit terrified. And then the second half, a bit like you said, like it's not like we were super good. We were better than in the first 2025, but it was just a poor standard game overall. Like, I will bring up our lineup, and there was only a few players who I'd be like, you still had a good game, but there was so many misplaced passes from both teams, so many poor touches, so much when you like. I don't want to look at this game from a Manchester United perspective, but they had one counter-attack. I can't remember if it was Mount or Bruno, one of them, and Hojlund was in all the space in the world in the half left space. And they just didn't pass it to him. If they just passed it to him, he would have been one-on-one with the keeper. And it just chose not to look for that pass.
Yeah.
We had, for example, after already making it 1-0, that Madueke chance, like only a couple of minutes later, how he doesn't make it 2-0 there, I don't know. Gusto at the end as well. He's only been on the pitch for like 5 minutes, still ran out of steam before the end of the pitch. That was a bit disappointing. But my God, we need to talk about this goal again. I know we touched on it already. It was outrageous. I can't even believe this goal that I was seeing.
It was
Talk me through it, bro. Talk me through it. Like Reece gets the ball, and I was like, all game I was moaning that Palmer being on the left, he looked like a pirate because he only had one leg. I don't know, the other one was wooden, and it really pissed me off. I couldn't use his right foot, and it was almost like flip side, mirrored, opposite situation with Reece. Or so I thought. All of a sudden, he does a ballerina spin, and then without even looking up, crosses it in the perfect area. And then, as always, it's either Cucurella or Enzo Fernandes, the only two people in our club that know how to move in the box for a cross, because everybody else has no clue where to go. But them two, thankfully, do know. And he puts it in. Oh, my God. I couldn't believe it.
It was
Go on, speak to
a rare moment of quality in a game that was pretty much devoid of it. I'm surprised a goal really came from that situation because, Maguire and Lindelof, two very big centre halves. I thought Maguire had a really good game. Because we kind of allowed him to lots of cross into the box. It felt like at certain times of the game, and he was just getting to everything. So the fact the goal came from a cross surprised me. It did help that it was a brilliant cross, pinpoint, and Cucurella, arrived at the right place at the right time. Took it really well as well. Like two moments of quality in a game that didn't have many of them, and ultimately that was enough. They both played really well, I think. Along with Caicedo, they're probably our three best players, I think. In a way, then there's no surprise that two of them linked up for the goal.
Yeah, no, it really wasn't surprising. I mean, Reece James had a difficult time at times recently in the sense that, a lot of us felt that he wouldn't really make our best team anymore at the moment. Now, Maresca made some somewhat interesting changes. Chalobah all of a sudden on the bench after I felt he's been one of our best defenders for a while recently, so that was interesting. And also Romeo Lavia, not in the team. Reece James in the team instead. Partly doing a bit of right back, partly coming into midfield. I think it was a bit more hybrid rather than every time stepping into midfield. But he certainly wasn't playing like a normal right back either. Just to let me finish that point. In the first half, there was moments where I was like, what are you doing, Reece? Like, it felt like he let Tosin and Cucurella and Neto do all the defending for him. I was like, he looked moany to me. I'm like, bro, you are the captain. Get everybody going. But to be fair to him, that's exactly what he did in the end. Now, I was moaning in the beginning about it, but in the end, that's exactly what he did. He made the goal happen. He was the one that kind of helped us shift the momentum in the first half with that strike, because I think that made United feel like, oh, we're dangerous. And I think that shifted the momentum in the stadium as well. So a lot of this win is down to Reece James today. And it's fucking brilliant to see. I can't lie. It's fucking brilliant to see. I mean, Reece has been fit since February. It's the end of middle of May now. Like, it's unbelievable. We haven't witnessed anything like this in years. Him being fit for this long, and even though he didn't always play the biggest roles, he was still always there. And for him to step up like this, I think will do him a load of good. But I think it's just really important for the club that he's managing to. And I always said this, like, I know he's not looking as sharp as he did many of the last few times that he came back from injury, but I'm also like, he's been injured for, say, 2.5 of the last 3 years, essentially. Obviously, he's not going to be at his very best. I think Reece James, if he manages to stay fit now, manages to get through the summer, start of next season, he'll be another Reece James again compared to now. But he was huge today, wasn't he?
Yeah, he did have a very good game. He grew into it really well, I think. You know, him along with the other 10 didn't really start very well, but you know, he did go into the game. Just come up there. Somebody mentioned the comment there. Maresca's managed James well, and I would say that he has. You know, played a bit here, played a bit there. Managed that game time really well, and you know, you've seen a bit of benefit of that certainly tonight. What I don't understand is it worked out in the end. Reece James is a very good footballer, so you know he'd have an impact on most games if you give him the chance. But we've heard Maresca say that he's not a right back; he's a midfielder. I see him as a midfielder. Don't see him as a right back. He's played him consistently in midfield, and then for what is a massive game today, regardless of where United are on the table, it's a massive game for us. We needed to win. He plays him at right back. I just don't understand what kind of message you're sending to him and the team. If you don't see him as a right back, you see somebody else as numerous players better right back, but then you play him there for such a massive game. It worked in the end, and hopefully it's a proof from Maresca that he is a right back and he's very, very good at right back, and that's where we should play him. But yeah, he was top today and grew into it. And also in terms of how his leadership, I'm not sure he should have to G up the crowd as much as he did in the situation, because, you know, 1-0 up in the last 15 minutes with Champions League football on the line, the crowd shouldn't need G'ing up. But he was constantly doing that. He was constantly talking to his teammates and stuff, and probably something we haven't seen as much from him. I think he's grown into that captain role as well. Again, that comes from having a little bit more time of being able a consistent time on the pitch, consistent time around the first team, to be able to have more of that impact. But yeah, brilliant cross. And yeah, you got to get him in those positions more. Those positions where he can really impact the game more, because when he does have, I don't say he's given time, but he wasn't really given time because he got the space and time himself. So yeah, I agree with you. If we can keep him fit and he can stay fit and have a really good, I'd say pre-season, but how much we're going to have that with this Club World Cup?
Yeah,
he can stay fit, and then next season he can get back to something close to what we knew and loved about him when he first started for us, really.
Exactly. And I knew it was coming. I knew someone would turn up with a comment like this. And Oakland is right here, celebrating a win against 16th Man United. Are they 16th? Are they not 17th? I thought, are they ahead of Spurs? Are they? Well, brilliant for them. But like we talked about this earlier, somehow, other than that 1-4-0 win under Conte against Man United, I've not seen us beaten United easily, ever. And we haven't won at their place in like over 10 years. And I think I remember that win last year, remember? Go on.
I think I remember Etu scoring a hat-trick against them one year. It was a shit hat-trick, if I remember rightly, but we won 3-0. But generally, we haven't done well against United.
Well, yeah, obviously, if you go back to like 2006, when Joe Cole, obviously, that game that we won the league in the last game of the season, or a couple of games before the end of the season, that home game. But like I say, that is a very, very long time ago. Just to stick on Reece James for a second, by the way, shout out everybody that's joined from Lewis's stream. Shout out Lewis, shout out everybody that's joined. Hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't done that yet. It was interesting. I've just looked it up in terms of how SofaScore, in terms of does the average positions for today, and it's more clearly kind of a right back area than I kind of had it in my head. I thought he did shift into midfield next to Caicedo a bit more, while Enzo pushed a bit higher. Obviously, it's average positions, which will always give you a mix of what's happening on the ball and what's happening off the ball. I would still give it overall, say that this was still our main base shape in the beginning, with Reece essentially actually playing as a right centre back, especially to start the game. But I think it shifted a little bit as the game went on, and I think we kind of adapted a little bit to what Man United were doing with obviously their back five and the wing backs, and then it started to become a little bit more like this, and we almost slightly matched their kind of four in midfield in wide areas a little bit. But I still think, I mean, my perspective in terms of when Maresca talked about Reece being a midfielder, I personally didn't think that meant not a right back. I thought that meant both, rather than more this than the other. But I see your point. I've thought about this so much this season because obviously with some people I've argued about it. With some people, like, it's just, some people make a case for this, some people make a case for that. But for me, it's always like, would Reece James be in the position that he is right now in terms of the fitness if he was played at right back the whole time? Can his legs sustain that? Maybe as he stays fit for a longer period of time, maybe it can. But I don't think, especially when he came back from injury, I think it was very important not to make him run too much, not to make him sprint too much, and to first get him in the team in certain areas where there was a right centre back or midfield, and get him back fit, get that match fitness in his body, because match fitness is the only thing that's going to save his hamstrings, I think, right? But at the same time, it's also like, whether you like the manager, whether you like what the manager does or not, if the manager doesn't really play with out-and-out fullbacks, you need to find ways to make it work anyway, right?
Yeah.
And I guess that's because for me, my logic is always, if we let Reece, and I know this isn't what necessarily happened today, but obviously when he plays midfield and when he inverts from right back, let's say it was Cucurella that does the left centre back today and Reece comes into midfield. My logic at the whole time in my head, it's like, if Reece plays here and then can get into these areas, essentially the exact areas across from today. Essentially, I know it was after a corner, so it didn't really matter about the position, but essentially the exact area he hit that shot from, just outside the edge of the box. He's not going to get those chances from right back. But I think if you let him in midfield, I think he can actually become a real go threat for us as well. I know this hasn't happened at all yet, and I know we haven't really seen him do that yet. But I think if you let Reece cross from the half spaces, a bit like, remember Aspie to Morata every time? If you let him play those crosses and let him shoot from those areas, I think he could arguably be equally as dangerous as he can from right back with less running. And then I think it's more likely to sustain. I get that everybody's saying he's better at this. And yeah, he probably is. But do I prefer a better Reece James for 10 games a season? Or do I prefer 5% worse Reece James for 35 games in a season? And sure, we can argue, but we don't know if that's true. That's just where... But I'm like, how am I supposed to sit here and say the medical staff who have finally started to figure themselves out a little bit, and the manager, surely they know better how to manage the player than I do, right? Or than some fans. That's my take. I get what everybody's saying, but I think he can be really important from midfield as well. But obviously he needs to get a little bit of time in that role as well before expecting him to be at his best as well.
But I also think he's a really rounded right back. He is good going forward. He does put in good crosses in the box, and he's got a good shot on him. But he's also good defensively. He's great with his, facing his own goal in the corner. He's really good in that situation. He generally finds a solution more often than not, and the right solution of keeping us in possession, or at least getting us into a more advantageous position. Yeah, the point about managing him in midfield, if you've got two other runners kind of doing that real hard work for him in Fernandes and Caicedo, I get that. But I've got to be honest, long term, I think he's got to be a right back. If Maresca doesn't play the football that's advantageous to him, then that's perhaps a little bit more difficult, but yeah, I don't know. Maybe Maresca's football doesn't suit him perfectly, but he was great today, and I probably thought it was a little bit of not exactly how we played in recent weeks, really, and you can probably see that in the performance overall. But he looked good. You know what I mean?
Yeah, just my take on Maresca. I think Maresca, the last, I would say, month, has also proven a bit more flexibility than people give him credit for, actually. I think he's done in a few games, gone a little bit more away from the base 3-2-4-1 shape that is used so often. Then I think people let on. They're like, because he didn't through that bad spell, people are like, okay, he never changes. But they kind of ignore when those few times that he actually does. Now, one verse, valid point. RJ is one of the best right backs on planet Earth. Calling him a midfielder, it's mental. Yes, you can say do not run up and down flanks, occasionally invert to midfield, etc., but not a total midfield. And I think, one, that's fair. Two, I think the main reason why Reece James played so much in midfield is our squad building, because we didn't have another midfielder. Lavi obviously being injured as much as he was. If you didn't want Caicedo to play every single game, including the Conference League, you needed somebody else to play in midfield instead. And would any of us have been happy if it was Amugu, who nobody rates or nobody knows? I don't think so. And you needed to find someone. So, and then you were made with another choice. Do you play Reece James very sometimes in a few Prem games, but not really? Or do you at least play him every midweek when he's the replacement for Caicedo? Now, I'm not saying this is, like I said earlier, if this continues for the next 2 years and he's permanently fit, then I'm not happy with this. But I think while you're making sure he's getting up to fitness, and while you're, I also think as a leader, I think it helps him to also be in midfield. I think the guy needs to really improve at defending a far post, which is also why I don't like him at right back. Right wing back in Tuchel's 3-4-3, sure. Then he didn't have to defend the far post. That was Aspie's job. But when he has to defend the back stick, I'm very, very scared every single time. So it does also have a few advantages when he's not in that area. But we don't want to sit here and talk about Reece James all day long.
I was going to say.
Phenomenal today. yeah, absolutely. But we do have another man to talk about, the same person that you can literally see on screen right now. Couture Criminal with the stats. Now, I haven't fact-checked, but I'll take your word for it. Highest scoring defender in the league as well. Marc Cucurella, my boy, turned up today, didn't he?
Yeah, he was top today. He really was.
He was top today. He's top most games. But what I love most is just, let me scroll up to it for a second. He's just so into it, man. And like I say, he just gives me David Luiz vibes, and I love David Luiz. Now, obviously, sometimes with the defensive errors, but because Cuckoo plays higher, he doesn't have those errors as much. Yeah. And he's just so on it. Like, even when he gets beat, sometimes when he gets pushed to the ground, he's straight up. He reminds me of a Duracell bunny. Like, he just never stops. There was one moment he was trying to start a counterattack. Then he got outpaced by the United players. He was like, okay, I'm not quick enough. And what does he do? He doesn't stop running. I then see him turn his direction of sprint, and he just sprints back to his left wing where he's supposed to be. And I'm just like, this guy just never stops running, does he? And don't forget, we don't have a backup left back. Cucurella played even the second leg against Djurgården last week. He even had to start that because we just don't have anybody else, because our owners and sporting directors got rid of Renato Vega in January, right? He's a joke of a player. Like, the touch, like he's crossing, not amazing. But the touch that he has and the positional awareness that he has, I genuinely don't think there's many players. Honestly, I will make it even more extreme. I don't think there's a single player in the world that can do the job Marc Cucurella does. I've not seen a footballer that does what Cucurella does before, in terms of being a defender, somehow playing, turning up in like number 10 roles, scoring constant crucial goals, but also being the main guy to set our intensity in midfield. Like, how can you do all three? How can you be one of the most important attackers, one of the most important midfielders, and one of the most important defenders in the same player? I've never seen that before. The closest is probably Kante, but Kante is different in the sense that Kante was just out of this world good. I think Cucurella is just smart and incredibly intense. Do you think I'm overdoing it? Am I too much praise?
Maybe a little. I would say that he looks a lot better. He looks so important to our attacking play because we perhaps lack other players to do the job, and he's having to do it from left back. In all fairness, I would say that I actually give Maresca credit for that, because he's found a way to get the absolute maximum out of Cucurella in that attacking position. And as we've already said, he's popped up with a few goals already this year, 2025 anyway. He's got passion, fight, and he's one of those players that, even, especially now when he's established himself a little bit more, but now when he's put in those performances, even when he's not playing well, he's always got that that fire in him, and it's very obvious to see. And again, based on the players that surround him, we probably don't have a lot of that. He probably sticks out in that respect. You probably got him and I'd say Fernandes, really, in that respect, who are very, very fiery, very fierce, and just the way they play the game.
Maybe Colwell, but Colwell is a bit more moany.
Yeah, intermittently, I would say, with Colwell.
Yeah, that's
who also was, he was all right today as well, to be fair to him. But yeah, Cucurella, since I remember when we first signed him, and those first 6 months were difficult. Like, he looked so out of place. But again, I mean, it's probably the case with a lot of players that have come to Chelsea in the last since these new owners have come in. Players with
I still think we'd be well off if we gave Koulibaly a second season and saw how that actually would have gone. Because I think sometimes people forget how difficult it is moving. Obviously, Cucurella didn't move across leagues, but especially for Koulibaly, who had spent, 10 years in Serie A, give a man a little bit of time. And it was also our worst season since like the 80s that he was here for. Like, it was difficult for anybody to look any good, if you remember that season, guys.
I do, but I think that Koulibaly was a player who was meant to be established, meant to be coming in, making us better. And Cucurella was one of these 10, 15, 20, 25 players who were young and have got no experience really at the highest level, or certainly the pressure and scrutiny that you've got at Chelsea compared to Brighton, and, with respect. And again, like him, he's taken a little bit of time, probably. Like you could say the same about Fernandes, the same about Caicedo. You could say the same about those three in particular were the ones that come to mind, but they need a little bit of time to get comfortable in that extra scrutiny and pressure. And
I think it's not just the general situation at Chelsea, but also the situation Chelsea were in when these guys arrived. Obviously with the ownership change, obviously absolute turmoil, Potter in charge, being 12th, that obviously makes it difficult for the individuals as well. But yeah, obviously, I'm sure a lot of people saw those clips of Cucurella and his wife in that Amazon documentary speaking about their kid being diagnosed with autism and, them struggling with that and everything. And wouldn't surprise me at all if this came out, this diagnosis, what happened in his first season at Chelsea. There was many struggles going on in Cucurella's personal life, as we heard at the time. But in terms of his goal scoring, I saw an interview of him recently where he was talking about his best goal-scoring season until now, basically, was when he was still at Getafe, and I think he scored 3 goals. And he was playing left mid for them. He wasn't even playing left back. He was a left mid for them when his best goal-scoring season was 3. And now look at him. I don't know how many he's got in all comps. I'll look it up in a minute when John is back to speaking. But yeah, I mean, I love him. I mean, to be honest, I was also one of the people, I've defended him even in his first season because I felt, yes, he had the struggles, but I felt you need to look out for players' strengths even when they are struggling, and I saw many strengths from him. Thankfully, that managed to shine through in the end. But I'm very glad, and I also have to. I will always go back to this. My personal experience of when I went to Chelsea playing Dortmund away, and I was in that away end, and every single time Cucurella touched the ball, a few people in that away end were booing. That's not happening anymore. And for someone to have that, let's call it, is use the online word remontada, to go from being booed every time you touch the ball by your fans to being literally one of the most loved players in the team, I think, is not an easy process for any player to manage to make happen, I think. So
shouldn't happen at all, really, being your own player, but that's a
I mean, that's a whole separate story. Yeah, but you're right. In terms of the team, obviously, we didn't really touch on it enough. Obviously, Nicholas Jackson getting sent off last week for being a bit of an idiot. We went with Tyreek George up front, but when you look at the bench, I mean, Gulavia and Gusto came on, Jurgensen, Bettinelli, 2 goalies, Anselmino, who's never played, Badiashile, 2 centre-backs, Achapong, right-back, centre-back, Chalobah, another centre-back, and Dewsbury Hall. We didn't have a single attack on the bench because Nkunku is injured and useless, Jackson is suspended, and Sancho was cup-tied because he's obviously on loan. So we didn't have anybody. We literally didn't have anybody. And you could feel that. Like,
yeah, okay. I mean, like, I agree with you. We didn't have anybody, certainly an out-and-out striker. Gui, obviously, still not fit to play or be involved, and the other 2 you mentioned. So I appreciate that. He's got to play somebody out of position. why he played the 19-year-old kid who, unless I'm mistaken, has not started a Premier League game up front. Why he chose to put him there rather than Neto, who has done it a couple of times this season when we needed him to, and who has actually done all right, really, in that role,
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, George has done it obviously in the Conference League. He started a few games as striker there, and he did also at Fulham. Yeah, it's different. That's fair, but he still played. And at Fulham, he came on at striker, scored the equaliser. Then obviously we turned it, but he did come on at striker. And I see what you're saying. I think it's purely speaking of physical profile because George is like probably close to 6 foot. While Neto is obviously a short man.
No, he was bullied. He was bullied today.
Yeah, like, obviously he was. And it also doesn't help that Sanchez punted one long ball after the other for George to duel against Harry Maguire, which was never going to work out. But that's not on George, that. Like, don't give him a long ball against Harry Maguire. Now, you could have probably physically and stylistically, you probably had the best case for Madueke to beat the striker because he's physically best, probably tallest of the three. But also, I saw him in front of goal twice today, and that's also your answer why he's not the striker, I guess. But I think it's partly...
Say that again? I'd have had Palmer or Neto playing that role instead of George. I'd put George here on the right wing. That's where he generally plays. He feels more comfortable. Palmer...
Or Neto just put George on the left, Madueke on the right, and Neto up front.
Maybe also, yeah. I mean, but I think he really sold him short. He really sold Tyreek George short today, Maresca. I think that was a really poor decision. He was not.
Don't you think it's a case of we knew because of their back three, no matter who we put up front, they were going to have a difficult afternoon. So you were going to put your more reliable, more experienced players in the positions where they are going to see more of the ball. Because if you put Neto up front and Neto doesn't touch the ball at all, like George had 6 touches in the first half, that kind of tells you everything you need to know about what happened for George today. But if you put Neto there and Neto has, say, 12 touches, would I not rather have Neto more involved on the wide areas, and I'd rather have the 19-year-old be the guy that's least involved? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I kind of understand what you mean, but then you play a different way. Like I don't know. I just feel like at times it was almost like we were playing with 10. George was not in the game at all.
But I don't know. Like a false 9 against the back three, I've not seen it work. I can't lie. I've not seen a false 9 have a good day against a back three.
Yeah,
but I get your point though. I get your point. Obviously, in the end, we won, so we don't have to cry too much about it. But it didn't look great, in particular, when the first half, kicked off the first half an hour. Now, in general, I have to give a little bit of credit to even Sanchez today. Made a couple of good stops, made a couple of good catches, some crosses. You need to stop punting it, for the love of God. Stop punting it every time. I mean, he pitched 17 long balls, 3 of them were accurate. That's not all on him. Sorry?
His distribution is terrible. Like, I cannot believe we've signed this goalkeeper to play with his feet. It's constantly, again, the stats there will say it more tangible, but even just watching the
obviously
game,
it's difficult for the goalie to play a long ball when you don't play with a striker, because where do you play the long ball for it to be successful? But then that's my point. Why are we then playing long balls? And it was the same bollocks at Newcastle. Now, I know we then had Jackson, to at least for the first 38 minutes, but Jackson was also seeing absolutely nothing against Botman and Dan Burn in the air. So stop playing long balls. But for some reason, Sanchez just loves a long ball. So that is that. But in terms of goalkeeping, he actually did a decent job today. I thought Tosin defended very well. I thought Colwell defended very well. Obviously, we spoke on Cucurella and Reece James plenty. Caicedo is just a joke. Caicedo is so ridiculously good. He turned up today in a face mask. I didn't know really why. Someone said he had something with his cheek. I would assume the only reason I see people wearing face masks is when they break things. So are you telling me he's got a broken cheekbone? Makes it even more ridiculous how ridiculous he is. It's just wild how good he is for me. It's just...
Yeah.
And by the way, an absolute robbery that he's not nominated for Player of the Season or in the Team of the Season. Absolute joke. How Declan Rice, for 2 goals in the Champions League, is in the Premier League Team of the Season, I will never know. Absolute piss take. Every single stat, Caicedo shits on every midfielder in the league. Every single stat. It is crazy how good he is.
I think Declan Rice had a good season as well, to be fair. But
good. But Caicedo had a worldy season in a bad team.
today he was incredible. Today he was on. It was of all the players on the pitch. Fernandes had a good game for them on the whole. But in terms of just today, any world class quality on the pitch, he was the only one. Really, it showed any of that. He was everywhere. Won balls, won tackles. Some of the passes that he played as well. I mean, the penalty, not penalty. It was a brilliant pass. Really great vision for him to even put that ball through. A couple of balls he tried didn't quite come off, but they were close. He shouldn't really be playing that role of having to pick defenses open. But a couple of times that was what he was doing today. He took on the responsibility to do that. Of all the players we have, he's top quality. And
isn't it a bit of a joke how we had Makelele, then we had Essien, then we had Kante, and now we have Caicedo. I don't know how. Like, you can criticize our recruitment from old ownership, new ownership, many things to criticize and scrutinize. But how we always manage to turn up with this ridiculous ball-winning midfielders, I don't understand how we do this. Like, I'm not saying Caicedo is as good as Kante, I'm not. But the way recently Cole Palmer spoke in a couple of interviews about Caicedo, he speaks the exact same way about Caicedo as the others used to speak about Kante. And for us to have pulled another one out the bag, it's like what Frankfurt do with strikers. We do it with ball-winning midfielders. It's crazy how we pull out
100 million helps. In all fairness,
it does, absolutely. But we had to put the money where the mouth is. We were like, we could have also lost him to Liverpool, but we were like, no, we actually want the guy, so let's pay another 5 more and another 5 more. So I guess I'll give them that. But yeah, like Max said, it is a bit of a joke that he's on the team of the season. Now, Caicedo was phenomenal today. All the praise, obviously. Unfortunately, Enzo Fernandes, I really like him, and I think he's had a very good season, a phenomenal second half to the season. Today he was off it. Poor passing. I mean, 74% possession is shocking for him, quite frankly. 11 misplaced passes. I've never seen anything like it from Enzo Fernandes. Only 1 of 4 long balls, 3 attempted dribbles, none of them successful. 2 out of 8 duels. He just had a bad afternoon. But he should have won us a penalty, in my opinion. John, where do you stand on this not given penalty for Enzo Fernandes' shot against Rasmus Hojlund's hand?
I've got to be honest, the only reason why I don't think it was a pen is maybe who was it who took the corner? Was it Neto took the corner? Neto took the corner. I think he was offside because Tosin heads the ball, the first header, heads it, and then Neto puts the cross back in. It goes, finds a way to Fernandes, and he shoots.
Okay, I mean, if what you're saying is true, if there was an offside before, fair enough. But they didn't tell us that. They decided it wasn't a penalty because they decided. I don't think the offside was their reason. If you're right on that, fair enough. Then the whole.
That's the only thing I can think of because the incident itself. I thought. I'm not sure if your
commentator said the same. Obviously I watch it via German Sky, but you can switch to an English commentator. And they were saying it was quite close, like in terms of distance from ball shot to Hojlund's hand. But for me, there's 2 things. Hojlund turning away from the ball takes any closeness out of the relevancy because he's looking away. It doesn't matter how close he is. He wouldn't react to what the ball does, no matter how close he is, if he's not looking at it. But also, he's literally extending his body with his hand. But I think the biggest factor for me, and this is how I think of it, a ball going for goal, if it's heading at goal, I don't care if it's deliberate. I don't care if it's on purpose. I don't care if it's by accident. I don't care if it's a slight touch. I don't care if it's the fingertips. I don't care if it's a complete stop. A ball going for goal, stopped by a hand, must always be a penalty, in my opinion. Because, you might as well give him a goalie glove. He literally stopped the ball that was heading for goal with his hand. I'm not saying send him off, like Reece James happened at Liverpool, but you can't just not penalize it because it was close. I mean, does anybody remember Branislav Ivanovic? There's a reason why the guy put his hands behind his back every time he was defending, because he didn't want to give a handball away. Well, that's what you got to do. You can't just say, it was too close. Well, don't put your hand out. It's football, not handball. I don't know, man. A ball that goes for goal in my opinion, if it's stopped by hand, always needs to be a pen.
I think in that situation,
I'm not saying that's the rules. I know that's not the rules, but I think that should be the rules.
in that situation, I think that you never know exactly, but the shot certainly looks like it's on target. His hands out, he's not looking. Okay, he is close, but I would argue it's a penalty. So I actually think that VAR would probably look at it for a penalty. So I can only assume he was offside. I know it was never mentioned, but also
do you not think it's because it was too close?
It was never looked at again. Like, it wasn't even discussed really at any other point. So indicates to me that it's probably offside, and therefore it's irrelevant to even talk about. If you
then surely show us the offside, no?
Yeah, I mean, I have no idea who controls the world feed, or I think it comes from Sky.
That is
directly, so.
That is valid. I mean, look at Kleinman here. He says, well, first he says he blasted it from so close to him that it's not a pen. That wasn't a deliberate handball, and that's not an unnatural position. Now, first of all, what defines an unnatural position? Like, why does it need to be? Why does it need to be like? Is it natural for you to block somebody? Like, so he's turning away with his hand out, like. Yeah, it's natural, but that doesn't mean it's okay. Like, I don't know. I think we've been absolutely robbed. Like we were every time against, like when Maguire kicked Batshuayi in the balls, when Maguire rugby tackled or wrestling tackled Azpilicueta at Old Trafford. Every single time we play United, we get robbed of some sort of crazy decision. But thankfully today it didn't cost us any points. And I think the big thing is, like Kleinman said here, was deliberate, not an unnatural position. The problem is that was the handball rules like 3 years ago, but they changed them on a yearly basis. So nobody really even knows what is the current rules. And sometimes I think even the refs aren't sure, if I'm being totally honest. But I mean, like I say, it doesn't matter. We won. And like Max says, how can you ever know if a handball is deliberate? You can't read minds. I agree if shot on goal, target should be pen. Fair enough. But yeah, it's also true. How do you know? Do you know that he didn't think it makes it made it look like it wasn't deliberate, but we don't know that.
I don't think it's a deliberate handball, but I mean that's beyond the point.
Neither do I. But...
I mean it's I think the hand's in an unnatural position. His hand is out. His hand is in a position where almost subconsciously he's gone. My hand being here is going to somehow get in the way of the ball, and like
like if he had his hand on his chest like this and it hit the bottom of his arm, obviously that's not a pen then. But he's literally out. Like I don't know.
I mean, but it is ultimately relevant, as we said, because didn't impact the result in the end.
Fair enough. I mean, Kleiman, he says VAR did look at it. I thought they looked at it as well because the ref stopped play for a bit until they were allowed to take that goal kick or free kick, whatever they got. But who knows? Obviously, who knows? I mean, maybe we'll hear something about it. But even then, you hear the VAR audio about Jackson, and I'm like, while I think they were right in sending him off, what they were saying was factually incorrect. They were talking about how he was permanently looking at Botman, which just wasn't true. And they were also saying he was not looking at the ball, also wasn't true. And they were also completely disregarded the fact that Botman crouched to jump and then didn't jump. Again, it is a red card, but their reasoning for it was a complete piss there. You can't just say he looked at him the whole time when he didn't do that. Like, what the fuck? It's like you're telling me 2 + 2 is 5. Well, no, it isn't. Like, you can't just.
We can have a whole debate.
But yeah, it's VAR. The less I talk about VAR, the better. But yeah, there you go. I'll switch it back over, and I wanna find another individual that we need to talk about today. The manager. I mean, he was very happy. I just found a very funny picture that I need to bring up. So he looks very happy and angry when he's celebrating that goal. In his last 2 home games, he beat Liverpool and Man United now. Obviously, we were struggling to beat... Now, I was going to say people in the top half. Obviously, Man United nowhere near the top half. But we were struggling against Big Six. I'm not sure if you knew the stat, John. Before playing Liverpool, we had 1 win in 26 against the top 5. So excluding Tottenham, because we obviously always beat Tottenham. So if you take Tottenham out of the equation, we had 1 win in 26 against the other top 5, but obviously one of them is us. So the other 4 top 5 teams, 1 in 26. And now we've made that 3 in 20. I can't do math. In 28 in the space of 2 weeks. It's not bad going. Now I know Liverpool were on the piss. Fair enough. And I know Man United are shit. But I mean, Man United have been shit many times and we couldn't beat them. Where do you stand on Maresca, John?
I'm not a massive fan. I probably said last time I was on. We're a little bit more consistent than we are under him than we were under Pochettino, whereas a little bit more erratic, probably more fun in all fairness, but it was a bit more erratic in the way we played. But you got to judge him, I think. I as I said before, on here and otherwise talking to other Chelsea fans, I think it feels like at times this season's been about trying to get things right, trying to fine-tune things, trying to work on exactly how he wants to play. You've got to remember this is his second season in management. He's still very, very new to this.
Yes.
And perhaps he's not 100% sure in the Premier League what exactly is the best way to go about things. So I'd give him time to not, There's been a couple of rumours and mentions that, we could let him go this summer. I just think he's asking for more of the same, more trouble. Yeah. I don't think that'll happen, personally. Certainly not.
I mean, we had the report, I can't remember if it was 2 days ago. I think Matt Law put out that Chelsea are not going to sack Maresca, even if we don't make Champions League. Now, I think had we lost today and had we lost to Forest and had we also lost the Conference League final, if all of those things happen, I think that situation might have still changed theoretically. But I think in principle, whether I'm the biggest fan of Maresca or not, sometimes I am, sometimes I'm not. Some of the things he says in press conference, like I'm much more annoyed by him off the pitch than I am by the things that happen on the pitch. Like when he said in December, we're not good enough to win the league, and we basically capitulated completely after he was talking about that. And then he gives me waffle reasons for the most stupidest things. I'm like, just talk to me honestly, bro. It's fine. I can handle it. Just speak to me what you think. It's fine. But don't bullshit me and don't talk us down. I can't handle that. But on the pitch, I don't mind it. Like we've created, like we're in the top 3 for expected goals. We're in the top 3 for chances created. We're second, I think, for big chances missed. We have like the 4th least amount of goals conceded. Like, and that's while having Sanchez in goal, who's the goalkeeper responsible for most errors directly leading to goals. So it's like, yeah, it's for me what this club needs is a bit of stability. Honestly, I would have also wanted stability with Poch. I didn't want to sack Poch last year. I think we should have kept Poch for a second season and then gone to Maresca. Then Maresca would have also had a season of Premier League football already with Leicester. Obviously, probably would have gotten relegated, and that would have meant we don't get him, I guess. But still, we need stability. And I think that's important that we're seemingly going to get that, especially this summer with the Club World Cup you touched on earlier. There's absolutely no time whatsoever to be changing manager. There's literally no preseason. When are you changing the manager? Imagine. Do you know what I mean? That would be crazy talk. But if I switch it over to the Premier League table now, obviously Villa playing today against Spurs, beating them 2-0, and Villa obviously being joint on points with us. We had to win because Villa have got United left on the last day. It's kind of crazy how Newcastle, Chelsea, and Villa now all have 66 points. Obviously, Newcastle with a game in hand, City with a game in hand, but not actually playing this weekend because they're playing the FA Cup final on day. So
no guarantee they'll be Bournemouth midweek as well, by the way.
Yes, exactly. Imagine if it's City that miss out. That'd be kind of funny. But where do you stand on it now? Obviously, we've got Forest in the last day. For purely our head-to-head against Forest, a draw would do. But obviously, because of Villa, them being level on points with us, we probably have to win.
We got to win. Simple as that. Like it's been after Newcastle, it was simple. We got 3 games, all competitions. We got 3 games to win. Simple as that. We crossed one off today. The easiest game of the 3 was today. We made hard work of it to an extent, but I also would argue that we didn't really like losing the game at any point. We worked through it. Forest and how they play, they're hardly expansive, so a little bit different than it was today. I think United at least did go out and try and play. We got to win. We just got to find a way. we talk about performance and the way of playing for a lot of the season, but seriously, it does not matter. I do not care how we play really anymore. We can sit here and analyze, and it's good for doing a podcast and stuff like that, obviously. But when it comes down to it, it doesn't really matter. 3 points, find a way to beat Forest, whether it's
But weirdly, Stamford Bridge is still booing for not playing pretty enough. So it's like, which way is it? Is it all about results or is it not? I don't know. At
this point,
obviously, Arsenal have a game in hand still, but we currently have more league wins than Arsenal. You can't be telling me we've had a shocking season if that's the case. You know what I mean?
We haven't had a shocking season. I mean, there's two ways to look at it, really. From a club point of view, if we don't qualify for the Champions League, then it's going to be a major disappointment. They spent a lot.
Because we've spent so much money. They've just spent most of it badly. But that's not on the manager or the players.
That's their decision, though. That's their decision. They decided the players were worth whatever they're worth. They decided these players are the players to get us where they want to be. They want Champions League football. If we don't get it, then it's a major disappointment for them. But for the team, realistically, you look at the players and their experience, and the manager and his experience. I mean, how many players have even played Champions League football in our team that played today? How many players have played Champions League football? Reece James, Tosin might have played a couple of Man City. He might have done. I don't think he did.
I don't think so.
Might have done.
I think it's James, Enzo,
PSV.
And maybe Palmer got one at City. Maybe Noni got a couple at PSV. I don't know.
But I would say there's, off the top of my head, there is James, yeah. I would say there's less than 30 Champions League appearances in our squad.
I mean, Badia Shield probably played a couple of Monaco, I guess, presumably. Yeah. But, I think Champions League also isn't equal Champions League. I think it makes a difference. Do you play Champions League as Chelsea or do you play Champions League, say, as Red Bull Salzburg, right? And do you once in a blue moon make the Champions League and you finish bottom of your group back when it was still groups? I think it's not quite like Champions League cap doesn't mean Champions League. It's the same as it's all well and good that Tosin is 26 when we signed him, but 3 years of that was in the Championship, and the other 3 years was Premier League, but we're Fulham. It's not the same as at Chelsea. So yes, it's experience, but it's not the experience that we really need. It's we need to make our own experience, which is the difficult part, which is why it's why spend quite so much money if there's no experience there. A young manager, a young team. Of course, it's going to be inconsistent, but the fans aren't quite.
That's the position they've been put in.
Yeah, exactly. And you can't even be mad at many of these individuals. You can be mad at Jackson for the red card. You can be mad at Noni for missing chances. But in the grand scheme of things, all of these players are doing exactly what you're expecting of young players. Even Palmer didn't have such an amazing season. Yeah, it's perfectly normal. Lamine Yamal will probably have a 3-month, 4-month spell where it will not be that great. I mean, maybe not, because he seems to be just the next god like Messi. So maybe he won't have this. But every other normal human being will have this. And, you see it with all of them. You literally see it with every single one of them. So there you go. Now, there's one other topic. And guys, obviously, if you have another couple of questions that you think we must speak about today, obviously bring it up. But otherwise, like Dylan asked, apologies for going off topic. In regards to the match, what are your thoughts on the new Chelsea kit? Just to leave it on this note, I spoke to you briefly about it earlier, didn't I, John? And you weren't quite as much of a fan as I think the large majority of people seem to be. But yeah, we've released that today. Obviously, no sponsor so far. Presumably, there will be one by the time we start next season or by the time we play the Club World Cup. But I like it. I like a simplistic kit. I like the pattern. I don't usually like certain patterns. It looks like a better version of the 1920 kit to me. With, yes, patterns, so architectural style pattern, but not so visible. I also quite like the red details, if I'm honest. I like it here on the side. It's on the shorts as well. It's on the inside of the kind of the back of the collar as well. I quite like it. I always think, I don't understand why people have a problem with the red accents, because I'm we literally have a few red accents on our badge. So I don't see why people say our red isn't Chelsea. I get it, but we literally have it on the badge. So it's I don't know. I like it. And I love the fact that Nike, and this is very rare for them, have brought back long sleeve options, because usually that was only an Adidas thing for a long time now. So, and you can see it on Cole Palmer. I think it works very well. Where do you stand on the kit? What do you make of the kit?
It's all right. I mean, yeah, I don't know. It's quite. It feels quite standard, really. What a few different shades of blue in and around the front of it. Yeah, I like this season's kit. I felt there was more contrast in it. This one, yeah, I don't know, but I'll get it, I guess, in the end. But
yeah. I mean, it's weird, isn't it? Like, everyone obviously has their own preferences. You say you like this season's kit because it had more going on. That's exactly why I didn't like this season's kit. What I will say, this season's kit, because it had so much going on, was better suited to having no sponsor on it. Such a plain kit or a simple kit needs a sponsor, more importantly, in my opinion. But I'm almost slightly kind of the opposite of you. I'm a sucker for a simplistic kit. I like my favorite Nike kit, probably still to this day, is Conte's second season, where it literally is just blue. There's nothing else on it. It's just the badge, the Nike tick, Yokohama tire sponsor, and blue. There's nothing else. But this, yeah, maybe I even prefer it. I don't know. I love a simplistic kit. It's just a couple of shades of blue. I like the collar the way it is. But the biggest thing for me, we've gone away, and I'm wearing it myself, but we've gone away from the plastic shiny badges. We've gone away to a normal proper badge again. Like, this is all well and good, and it looks nice, and it reflects the light, and all well and cool. But the fact that we did this 2 years in a row really pissed me off. A football shirt, do this for third kits. Do a shiny kit or a shiny badge for a third kit. On the home shirt, you better have a proper badge on it, in my opinion. And I'm glad we have a proper badge on it again. That's all I'll say.
Yeah, no, I get what you mean. Proper badge and basic. Simply, I don't really mind. But I always think the problem is like, I mean, it's not just Chelsea; it's all clubs now. It's like you're bringing out a new kit every year. You're expecting people to pay £100 for it. Like,
more
just
than
to bring
that.
out the shirt.
If you want the vapor version, it's like £125 without a print.
Another shirt with like a different shade of blue, and like what's the point? Like, I feel like if you're going to bring out a new kit every season and expect fans to pay for it, then it's got to be something special all the time. Just keep the same kit. I mean, obviously, financially,
obviously, a lot of people watching might not be aware of this. Back when me and John were kids, it used to be very, normal that Premier League teams had their home shirt for 2 seasons.
All time,
I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not sure how it went with the away shirts, whether they changed those every year or whether it was like 2 years each, but like maybe 1 year apart, if that makes sense. I'm not sure quite how it worked on the away kits back then, but there's a case we made for that. But at the same time, you can't expect our club to do it if no other club does it, I guess.
No,
it's
sure.
It's economy.
This is a point.
No, exactly. And it's also, by the way, it's not Chelsea's fault, the prices of the kits. That's a Nike thing. That's also not Chelsea don't choose those prices. It's also not, Nike's fault or Chelsea's fault. The fact, all those reasons why everything everywhere has gotten so much more expensive, the war and Trump and all sorts of crazy things, right? That have made everything a lot more expensive. Neither Chelsea's fault nor, Nike's fault. Maybe one last thing to quickly touch on. I'm not sure if I'm going to find a picture. I'll try. Todd Bowley was there today, and he turned up in a LA Dodgers hat. We spoke briefly. You weren't the fan. Of this.
Man, I mean, like this, really, 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 really annoyed me. This is a massive game for us. We've been building up for this for the week. It's been a massive. Every game is massive at the moment because of what's on the line. It's going to be online until the final kick of the game. I can't understand it. Like, it's tone deaf. Massive game for Chelsea Football Club, the team that you're a part owner of, and you turn up in a cap of your baseball team, especially when talk about this kit and the kit release. The video they did was so concentrated on London and Southwest London and like the traditions and how local Chelsea is meant to be, which probably bollocks anyway. But that's what you try to sell it as. And I'm not, I know he's not involved in every decision, but you do that and you turn up in like a baseball cap of a team that's got nothing to do with Chelsea. You're telling me we haven't got enough baseball caps for you to choose? I mean, you could argue that's also a little bit gimmicky and a little bit on for show. I just don't wear one. I mean, honestly, like I couldn't believe it. And it just, again, it's another example. I saw the overlap episode with Ruud Gullit, and he was talking about identity and how Chelsea have lost our identity. Now, I think a lot of it is down to we're not winning. And it's easy to turn around and say about identity and, you know, when you're not winning, we've lost that. You know, we're not as good as we were before. But Chelsea used to be a team that were great on the eye and easy to watch. Mourinho came, changed that. We won 2 leagues in a row. And no one moaned about us losing our identity of what we had before. So that's kind of, you know, that's not really the point. But, you know, he was right, Gullit, when he said that these people who currently run and own the club do not understand it. They don't get it. And like the thing like this is, it doesn't really matter, you know, in the grand scheme of things. If we qualify for the Champions League, it's ultimately has no impact. But it's just frustrating. It's frustrating to see people who are so tone deaf and like don't. Yeah, I don't know. You mentioned.
Yeah. I mean, I actually agree on the Dodgers hat. That was my reaction. I was looking at it. I was like, is that a Dodgers hat? And I put it in our group chat, and Charlie, people watching, a lot of you will know Charlie Patrick. He said he sees loads of people at games with Dodgers hats. And I'm like, are you? Fair enough. I agree with you, John. I think it is a bit tone deaf. Why are you doing that? I don't really get it. On the Ruud Gullit thing, I do have a slight different opinion. 2 things. Number one, if you watch the whole Gullit clip, Gullit starts it by saying, I met the Chelsea owner. What's his name? And I'm like, so you've met him and you don't know his name, but you moan about him not knowing your name before he's met you. I don't really think that's on, if I'm being honest. But also, what Gullit never specified when they met. Because it makes a big difference to me if this meeting happened, a few weeks, months into Bowley owning the club, or if this happened last week. I think that makes a big difference if we're 3 years into owning the club or if it was straight after he owned it. Because we've also got to be realistic. The way the ownership was taken over, it's not like Bowley would have wanted, or the whole ownership, right, would have wanted to rush the takeover process the way it happened. But obviously with the war and with obviously all Abramovich's assets being frozen, it obviously had to be pushed through and we had to be rushed. Otherwise we could have seized as the club and all sorts of business, right? And obviously it was very busy. So I'm like, and I'm sure I'm sure there's a case to be made. You should know our former managers and our former players. I get it. But it's like the man owns multiple billion-dollar businesses. And again, my big deal is if it was last week, I agree with the criticism. If this was in the first few months of owning the club, I don't agree with the criticism. I'm like, I'll be honest, before playing FIFA as a kid, I didn't know who Ruud Gullit was because I was too young to see Ruud Gullit play. And then obviously throughout later in life, I then realized, okay, Ruud Gullit, he actually played for Chelsea as well. And I know Todd Bowley's obviously a lot older than I am, but he's also American. So obviously he wasn't following football in England in the 90s, was he? Right? Let alone in the 80s when Ruud Gullit was at his peak at AC Milan or the early 90s, right? I mean, I get your point. I'm not even saying you're wrong, John. I'm just saying,
yeah, I mean,
a bit of like, we just jump on it because he said it. And I don't have a problem with what Gullit said, but yeah. Sorry, go on.
You know what it is? Like, perhaps you're right. Perhaps it's not really that big a deal. It's not really that important. But it's another example of a situation where it seems that the people in charge have no real understanding or care about the club. It's another example of it. You know, Ruud Gullit's arrival at Chelsea is like, it's kind of a sliding doors moment. In the history.
It's like that arrived, and Jose turning up, right? And Roman. Like, those 3 things are like the biggest things that happen in changing us to the club we are now.
You know, Gullit put Chelsea in a different, like, certainly the image of Chelsea in a different situation.
Yeah.
He owns the club. Like, you know, he's American. He perhaps he should know who Ruud Gullit is. Yeah.
Like I say, if this is now, I agree. But I can't expect him to know that 3 months into owning it after rushing the whole takeover. I'm like, Well, when is he supposed to have done this research? But I get you. Don't get me wrong, I get you. But like you said earlier, it's all about winning. If Chelsea were currently top of the league, would Hojlund have said this in an interview? Probably not.
They wouldn't. They wouldn't.
So this is where there was also once Drogba where I'm like, Drogba was like he doesn't recognize his club anymore. I'm like, I get what you're saying, but as a legend, you're not exactly helping the situation here. That's kind of like fans booing players. I'm like, I get it, but it's not helpful. And I'm like, if we're talking about Ruud Hojlund as this big important figure at Chelsea, can he not act a bit helpful to Chelsea rather than throwing new dirt out that can be used against Chelsea? You know what I mean?
Just like Joe Mikel on his podcast.
He's the next dickhead. He needs to stop. He needs to stop having a go at everybody as well.
Yeah.
This is what John, you were a footballer. You made millions. Let us do the podcasts and you do your millions. You know what I mean? We can moan about the players. You don't. Do you know what I mean? All he does is wants to get his commission fee for getting Osimhen to Chelsea. That's all Mikel's interested in.
I wonder how much going to earn off him.
Yeah,
I don't know. I think it's it doesn't really matter whether he knew it or not. But
maybe I've come across that way now. I'm really not a big fan of this ownership at all. Now, I prefer Bowley to Eghbali in terms of what I know in the background, how much power Eghbali has, how many of the decisions come more from Eghbali's end than Bowley's end. I certainly prefer Bowley to Eghbali. I don't like either, though. But what I don't like is it's a bit like with Jackson. I think Jackson was an idiot for getting himself sent off, but I think the reaction was over the top. People were like, sell him immediately. I never want to see him play for the club again. It's like, yeah, he was an idiot, but people just went over the top again. And I just automatically, that's just me. When I see people, what I feel going over the top, I become a bit defensive when it's to do with Chelsea. I'm like, well, stop that. Don't be too harsh. Like, I know we're a shit and I know he's an idiot and everything, but don't overdo it. But I just get defensive in those situations about my players, my team. That's what it is. But there you go. And your face looked like you disagreed on that Jackson point.
Oh, God. I mean, the Jackson thing we could go into more depth about. At the time, my initial reaction was he should never play for us again. Really pissed off.
Yeah. No, but at the time, that's fine. No problem. But more like if people still had that opinion the day after, I'm like, come on, man.
Honestly,
literally, don't forget Drogba slapped someone in the Champions League final and cost us it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but okay, that is true. But
or Terry
Drogba has shown his worth. Drogba has shown his worth already by that point. Jackson hasn't really done that.
True,
we
does that matter in that moment, though? If you're slapping someone in the Champions League final, does it matter what you've done before?
It does a little bit. It has an impact. You will give players who have...
I was certainly fucking angry by the time John Terry slipped his penalty. I'm like, this should have been Drogba.
When John Terry need Alexis Sanchez off the ball in 2012, we wouldn't have disowned John Terry at that point, would we, in terms of him as a player, because he'd been brilliant for us down years, and Drogba was the same. Like it was a silly thing to do what he did. It was stupid, but with Jackson, he hasn't really proven himself. He's still trying to prove himself. He's still inconsistent. He's had moments, and I think he's raw and whatever. But he's been at Chelsea for 2 seasons now, and there's no excuse for what he did. He didn't look at the ball. He only looked at the player. He was obviously frustrated. Perhaps you're right in terms of the way Sanchez was putting the ball up to him. Yeah, he was frustrated. He elbowed someone in the face. He knew he was going to get sent.
And he did. And he knew himself, right? Like, there's nothing taken away from that. But he didn't. Drogba meant to slap the guy.
I think he meant to elbow him. I think he meant to elbow him. I think he meant to elbow him.
He went to barge him, man. He went to barge him, and Botman didn't jump, and then he accidentally hit him in the head. He didn't purposely elbow him. Why would he? Like, what is his, like, obviously, because there was no, like, it wasn't like in a fight. He wasn't like losing his head in that moment. He was just, trying to barge. That's what I think anyway. I just think he tried to barge him off the ball and got it really badly wrong, unfortunately.
But how often has he been done for dissent and booked for dissent and stuff? So again, we come back to the same conversation here and the same topic of players with no experience. We're surrounded. We have players only of that, and Jackson's another example of that. The issue is he hasn't proven himself on the pitch in terms of his ability. But he's put himself in a really difficult position now because we're probably going to go outside a striker in the summer. I honestly, after that, and based on his performances, I would sell him. I think he doesn't have the mentality or the mentality to deal with being a star striker at number 9, let's say, without having the number 9 at Chelsea. Yeah. So I would sell him. But now, regardless of whether we sell him or not, he has to come back. He has to hit the ground running. He has to be absolutely bang on it straight away. There's now no room for improvement or a situation where he can ease himself back in. He has to be straight back on it, because the fans, we know how toxic it has been, with certain players at times. They aren't going to give him time. They aren't going to give him time. People won't forget.
I like that. I think Jackson is one of the few that can handle this better than others. If the fans are a bit against him and are challenging him in that sense, because for me, it's also, don't forget about Reece James. What happened last year? We played Newcastle with that stupid red card. We have a tendency of getting ourselves stupid red cards, and there are plenty of it. We talk about Drogba, we talk about John Terry. There's so many others where there's been stupid red cards, and you're like, Diego Costa once bit an Everton player in an FA Cup quarter-final and we lost. Do you know what I mean? He's just decided to bite a guy. I'm like, relax, bro.
Yeah.
I mean, these. I don't want to say these things happen, but these things happen, and I don't want it's a whether he meant it or not. I think he didn't. You think he did? It doesn't really matter. Whichever way it was a split-second moment that happened. He obviously realized quickly after, that was stupid. You know what I mean? So it's in terms of for the summer, I would see your point if there was any evidence of trusting these sporting directors to buy 2 good strikers. So there's no hope of that. So I'd rather you keep Jackson and buy 1 good one, because then we have at least 2. You know what I mean? Because if they sell Jackson, they'll buy 1 decent one and 1 shit one, and then we'll be in the same situation as this year, and I don't want that. But who knows who we're going to get? Delap supposedly prefers Man United now. I don't know. Does it end up being Osimhen? Maybe. I don't know.
We'll have to see what happens. It's going to be an interesting summer, I think, certainly, in that respect.
Very, very interesting. Ladies and gentlemen, I think it's about time we wrap this one up. It's been a good night. It's not a pretty game, but it's always a good night when you beat Manchester United. Currently into 4th in the Premier League. Exactly. Currently into 4th in the Prem. A couple of teams around us, obviously, still with games in hand, but for now, it's looking good, which is obviously very nice. Like I said, once again, thank you, John, very much for coming on. Check out the Bundesliga Diaries podcast. The link is down in the description, guys. If you're into Bundesliga stuff, especially with Chelsea being linked and interested in many a Bundesliga player, might be worth taking a listen on a couple of those, whether it's Hugo Ekitike, whether it's Benjamin Šeško, whether it's God knows who else we sometimes randomly get linked with. There's a few of them. Maybe I'll bring you on if we get more seriously linked to a couple of more of these guys. Maybe I'll get your Bundesliga perspective on a couple of these guys. Especially interesting as a Chelsea fan, how you view the Bundesliga in terms of as a place to make signings from. Because obviously, on many occasions, it has not quite worked out, whether it was Werner or Havertz or plenty others that I can't think of right now. Bundesliga strikers or players that haven't quite worked out for us over recent times. Obviously, Nkunku, the big one. How can I forget Nkunku?
Yeah.
A few ones that haven't worked. But yeah, like I say, John, thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't already, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. That'd be massively appreciated. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you guys for watching. Up the Chelsea, upwards and onwards, and we will see you next time.
2 games left. Come on, Chelsea.
Let's go.